Welcome to Doctor and the Dude. I am Dr. Jim Siebert, and joining me is my favorite hurricane hunter, Josh Morgerman. Josh, how are you doing today?
Doing awesome, Dr. Jim. Doing real good.
There's a lot of debate out there right now, Josh, that hurricane season seems to be becoming a slower hurricane season. And you actually have a little bit of historical data to tell us what we should be looking at as far as determining whether or not this is a slow season or if it is a slow season at this point. What do you got?
Yeah, before August 10th, I always scold people for saying you can't call it a slow season yet, but we're after August 10th now, and it's still kind of quiet. And we are actually now looking at what is potentially an officially slow start. Now, my good friend, Brian McNulty at the University of Miami had an interesting stat to share, which is that if we don't have a named storm by August 20th, we will be 17% of normal activity, and we will be tied with 3 other years as the slowest start since 1970. So if we don't get anything by the end of the week, basically, we are officially off to a slow start.
It's kind of, I'm torn. In a way, it's like, well, that's kind of interesting. And two, it's kind of like, that's kind of scary at the same time because we're still waiting for, like the hat to fall or something bad to happen around us, at least at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's still early. You look at 1992, the A storm Andrew didn't strike Florida until August 22nd. But when it did hit, man, that was like history making. So you just don't know. And I should also point out 2017 is another really good year where we just had a bunch of junk storms until very late in August. Then we had Harvey, and that was when that season really started. And 2017 was an historic and destructive season across the Caribbean and the United States. So folks should not get any ideas that, okay, you can let your guard down or whatever else. But yes, there do seem to be some indications that we are off to a slow start.
Now, if let's say we continue with this slow start, a question's been asked me that I should ask you is, do you have any other storms that you pursue if it's a slow hurricane season, or are you just out of luck if you don't have any hurricanes to go run after?
Me, I am strictly hurricanes, and I'm unusual compared to a lot of other guys who hunt different kinds of weather or just who hunt weather in general. I am a hurricane specialist, and it's all I do. And, it's just I've always had this singular obsession. So it means that, for example, when there's an interesting flood event, I won't cover it. And actually, I wanted to ask you, what happened in Texas this week? There was something, we thought it might become a tropical cyclone. It moved ashore, and then once it was over land, it kind of did look like, what was that? What happened?
Well, again, this is more of the makeup of the storm system itself. And so when the Hurricane Center was tracking it, they actually had a 0% chance of organization, but they were still watching it simply because any area of low pressure, we're going to watch that closely. But whether it's an extratropical low or a tropical low, it's an area of low pressure, it's a storm system. The difference is really the makeup of what's happening inside. But all that mattered to Texas, and people in South Texas especially, was that it was a big rainmaker. And as we look down the road, we have yet another system that might come across the Bay of Campeche and then possibly move into Mexico, possibly go towards Texas. Again, low chance for development, but a high chance, high probability of lots of rain in northern parts of Mexico and southern parts of Texas. And so that's what we're seeing right now. Now, in the longer range also out in the Atlantic, Josh, I'm seeing maybe another week from now, another area of low pressure that would possibly develop tropically, but go towards the middle of the Atlantic. And so we're still kind of in this waiting game. We see all these possibilities out there, but nothing really shows signs of something that is a big concern, at least in the next few days.
Yeah, I've been looking at the models, watching them like a hawk, and the operational models are showing absolutely nothing. Some of the ensemble members, like you were talking about, are starting to show some activity, in the Western Gulf, out in the Eastern Atlantic. But that's no assurance that anything's going to impact the United States. A lot of this stuff that does form way out in the Atlantic, and near Africa, as you know, Dr. Jim, a lot of that stuff just kind of oftentimes just harmlessly curves out to sea. I call them fish storms because they just really the only beings that experience them are fish. And, we can only hope that that's the kind of season that we're going to have, where everything that does form just kind of recurs out to sea.
Well, and the high pressure in the Atlantic right now, as I see it, is going to be still rather strong, which sometimes, depending on where it's at, it helps pull those storms to the right. I still see that being the possibility at this point. Now, one of the things that we start to looking for is what will change in the next several weeks, meaning when things start to improve as far as not seeing hurricanes. We're still a long ways from that. But once we start, as I see, we start seeing cold fronts that come out all the way into the Gulf of Mexico, cold fronts that go all the way out into the Atlantic, that's when the season starts to change. But we're not there yet, are we?
Yeah, absolutely. Those cold fronts sweeping in become sort of like the game over for the United States in terms of hurricane activity often. But interestingly, on the other side, in the Eastern Pacific, those cold fronts sweeping down, they actually boomerang the hurricanes in the Eastern Pacific back into Mexico. So on Mexico's west coast, the month they have to worry about is October because those cold fronts are coming down and sending the storms into Mexico rather than for us on the East Coast out to sea.
It's a good reminder that something that might be good for you is probably not good for somebody else. And so it really is kind of a matter of semantics, at least at this point. Well, Josh, I think we are out of time for this go around with Doctor and the Dude, but hopefully, I mean, we wouldn't mind having a slow hurricane season, and hopefully that will continue. But don't forget to check us out on Roku, Apple TV, Amazon Fire, and Android. We'll see you next time, everybody.